My general topic really tonight is how Highland dance is related to our country dancing, how it's influenced our country dancing, and even some Highland dances that have made it into our repertoire. And first among those are the foursomes, and we do two kinds of foursomes, both usually as a medley, and that's a Strathspey reel or a Strathspey and Tulloch or half Tulloch. Full Tullocks are silly. I don't think anyone ever does a full Tulloch. But these are dances that happen with a nominal partner whom you face, but in a line, as in a reel of four. And they follow a pattern where you turn or reel and then do a setting step, and then turn or reel and do the setting step. So it follows kind of a chorus figure kind of a format almost, which is something we see a lot in English dances, in Morris dances, and step dances too, but not so much in country dances except in these few. So that's kind of an interesting thing, is that dance structure is something that didn't really carry forward in our country dance traditions in the same way that it did with the English country dance traditions. But these were done regularly, foursomes were, all the way into the 19th century, and they adapted. A couple of the dances we'll be talking about are versions of these foursomes that were kind of squeezed into the new formats of contra dance lines, or what we do as in our long lines, or even squares for quadrilles. So I'm also including here some of the instructions in some of their earlier forms, some of the comments that were in Won't You Join the Dance, or in 101 Scottish Country Dances, which were some of the earliest publications that Miss Milligan was involved in. The RSCDS didn't actually have a manual until 1992.
Oh, wow.
Up until that point, it was all Miss Milligan's Won't You Join the Dance, which I think she actually held the copyright on. So it was a little complicated there for the society. You know, there was a conflict of interest, certainly, for the society run by Miss Milligan to not have a manual of its own. But by 1992, she was out of the picture, and they mostly took what was in Won't You Join the Dance and turned it into a manual. They formalized things and institutionalized some of what had been set down by Miss Milligan there, and by the various committees, and made it perhaps a little more durable, certainly more formal. But some of the commentary that's in these earlier publications, I think, is interesting, and part of why I included it is just because of that interest, but also because it's a little bit closer to that point of divergence from the Highland dance tradition. This is when RSCDS was just the SCDS, right? It was before it got that royal patent, and they were figuring out what to do. Their earliest aims involved a lot of research. They specifically mentioned talking to old people to find out what they remembered about their dances, and so they were figuring out what this Scottish country dancing really was going to be all about, and how best to carry the tradition forward. But I found this kind of a stitch. Look at bars 9 through 16 on the right-hand page. All set with 4 Strathspey setting steps, Highland tiche, or any Highland fling steps for the men. Ladies dance more flowing steps. Men may raise their arms, but ladies should never do so. So all of the instructions and directions in these earlier publications all are as sort of imperatives to the gentleman to place their partner or in the right place at the right time. It's never, the ladies are never, you know, individuals with free will. They're objects to be manipulated. It's a little off-putting to my sensibilities, but you know, I can step back enough to be amused. So here's a more modern, here's the current version of this. This is as it's published in book 3. So it's been through some revisions. Now the notes just have to do with how many times through it goes. And there's a picture you can see that everybody lines up as for a reel of 4. And there certainly isn't any, you know, the gentleman places his partner here. So did we get the gist of things though, while I was blathering about those notes and the gender roles?
Sure.
Did you see the basic pattern of things? That there's some strathspey and there's some reel. Everyone spends time. Let me see if I can get a pointer up here. Everybody spends time doing a reel, and then they spend time setting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they reel some more, and then they set some more. And then everybody will clap hands. Actually, after another turn of all of that, and switch into quick time. This whole, another kind of interesting pattern, or maybe not pattern, but trend in the development of our Scottish country dancing is how often medleys are written and published and programmed. And I did a tally. RSCDS has published 27 medleys. And of those 27, 17 of them, is that right? No. In the first 11 years, 7 of them were published. And the next 67 years, only 11 were published. And the balance is made up by some not strictly RSCDS sources, which were oriented towards performance. The McNabb dances are really heavily Highland influenced. McNabb was from Vancouver. She ran a performance group, and she was involved from the RSCDS there from its earliest days. And then there's also a fellow named Jack McConaughey who was kind of the leader of the Scottish dance section for the Imperial Society of Teachers of Dancing. And we have the Imperial books that have been imported into the RSCDS repertoire. And that was mainly as a result of the Imperial Society of Teachers of Dancing closing out their Scottish section. But anyway, so those medleys are something that kind of also go along with the Highland structure, as we see here in the Foursome reel, and happens in the strathspey and reel. But it also happens in Scottish music competitions, in piping and fiddling competitions. The individual musician, when a musician is competing as an individual, they have to play a medley, and a strathspey and reel is part of what they do. So let's take a look at a dance here. So this is from Cowell in 2014, and these are So a couple of things I want to note and point out. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the dancer, the third dancer from our left and the fourth dancer from our left, after they bowed, they just walked right off. Do you know, anyone know why they did that? It was because they were alternates. So they had already done they had already been judged. And so they were just filling in because they need 4 dancers for this to be judged, to compete. So the 2 on the left were in it for the competition in this round, and the 2 on the right were filling in the spots so that everyone had a turn. So the third one in particular was a little tired looking, especially at the end, and that's why. All right, she had done twice as much as everybody else. Let's see what else. I should also mention that Cowell it's one of the oldest of the modern Highland games. Anyway, it was organized in 1895, and it is the World Championship that's held there. So Cowell, if you get to compete at Cowell, it's a big deal. Most competitions in most Highland games are open. There aren't any qualifying rounds or anything like that. That's not true for Cowell. You have to get through a qualifying process in order to even get on the stage. So anyone you see at Cowell is going to be pretty good. Any other questions or comments?
It was a little hard at this scale and at this distance to distinguish all the various steps that they were using.
Yeah, that's always the way this kind of thing is. Either you can see all the dancers or you can see some of the dancing. You can't really get all of it.
Right.
But if you've learned any of the steps, or if you know any of the steps already, you can look at it and say, oh yeah, hey, that's that's the same step I did in the fling, or well, and high cuts at the end is always, high cuts at the end. How was the timing? Was it jerky and blocky? Did the sound work? Did the sound match up with the movement? Yeah. Or it was at least so?
Okay.
So. Okay.
It was, I thought it was good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it seemed okay.
So let's so that was a Strathspey reel. The reel of Tulloch is a similar thing, where instead of doing a reel, they do a set of turns. And the turns that they use, instead of being the regular shake hands grip that is specified by RSCDS for almost everything, is this elbow grip. And the manual goes into real detail in the handing section to talk about Tulloch turns that only occur in maybe half a dozen dances. Let's see, I think, yes. So here's what the manual has to say about it. And again, this is the current manual. When 2 men are turning, they use the elbow grip with the palm of the right hand supporting the underside of the other dancer's arm just above the elbow. The thumb must not encircle their partner's upper arm. Look at this thumb right here, by the way. The other arm's raised in second position as in the Highland fling. And then here's a picture of a man and woman doing a Tulloch turn. The lady always has an option to hold her skirt. Of course, when your skirt's this short, you don't need to hold it, or maybe you need to hold it down. But usually the holding the skirt would be for a longer, fuller skirt. And it says, when two women are dancing, they may use the elbow grip and hold their skirts with their free hand, but alternatively and specifically in the Reel of Tulloch, when two women are dancing together, they do this crazy stuff. I've never seen anyone actually do this on a dance floor. I've seen lots of Tulloch turns. I've seen lots of ladies holding their skirts or putting up their arms, even though the old book said they should never. And but this thing with the behind the back, I've only actually seen in the reeling videos that Jeffrey shared with us last week.
I've seen people do this type of turn at balls and things.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely enough.
Yeah, well,
but
this for sure, but never this that I've seen, not for real. But it's in the manual, so if you wanted to go for it, you could. It has there's a textual basis, I guess you could say. Let's see. Let's look at the instructions on this. So this one is this is book 3. This is actually the current or reasonably current set of instructions. And the notes here have to do with how many bars the turns take, and how many repeats of the dance you do. And I thought this was kind of scary. When a foursome reel is followed immediately after an eightsome, it should take a shorter form. An eightsome reel is a torment. It's a marathon. It's more dance than anyone needs. And it's a simple dance with lots and lots of repetitions. You circle, you set, you reel, you set, you circle, you reel, you set, you reel, you circle. It is, and everybody takes a turn doing all of those things many, many times. Doing it makes sense you'd need to do a little less of this if it was right after an eightsome, but I can't imagine doing this right after an eightsome.
That's like buck and eightsome, right?
Buck and eightsome is tolerable. There's half as much circling in a buck and eightsome. Yeah, buck and eightsome is a close relative to an eightsome reel, but the full eightsome reel is it's just too much. Also, take a look at this diagram here on the top of the second page. It shows that weird behind the back grip, and it shows it for man and woman. So that all that stuff about when women do it, it's this way, and men and women do it, it could be this way. That it's kind of there. It's an interesting little inconsistency there. Let me see. I think before we do the now, let's go ahead and do the video. So, yeah, bonus points if you recognize anybody.
Catherine there too.
Yeah.
You and Catherine.
Yeah, I thought I saw you in there somewhere.
Yeah, both of
Yep,
them.
I'm here. Catherine's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That at the very end, then that turn by the right kind of thing. The stepping looks very messy. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be that way.
well, see, that's an interesting thing because the RSCDS specifies that you should skip change, which is impossible to do for a proper Tulloch turn. So the proper Tulloch turn is the Highland dancers call a propel pivot turn. And the inside foot in that really just almost pivots on the spot.
Right.
While the outside leg, goes to second and sort of paddles.
That's what
Skateboard style. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but what I've
so what
observed
you're
is that
seeing
normally
here
when that
is
is
a bunch of Scottish country dancers doing Highland. So it's a little bit of both. Yeah, even
when you do that kind of
knows the right way, like me, I can manage to do the right way. Catherine doesn't just manage, but succeeds to do it the right way regularly. But when you're with a partner in your turn who thinks they're supposed to skip change, the change of weight and the balance doesn't work, and you can't keep it centered in the same way.
But what I've noticed is that when you try to do one of those pivot turns, the inside feet should almost be touching each other side to side.
Yes.
And that keeps it from being messy. These feet were all over the place. They were far apart, even in the middle.
Yeah, well, when country dancers are doing skip change, there's no way to have the one foot stay in the middle.
Okay.
Right? And
fair enough.
And that's what the manual specifies. So there's always a little bit of difficulty there. But the Highland tradition, as competitive Highland has chosen to carry it forward, doesn't try to do any kind of traveling in that. And so that's a kind of a point of distinction. Most of the difference between country dance and Highland dance on this kind of thing is really more a question of styling. If we think back to that Strathspey reel, there was a lot of elevation. The movements were sharp and very clean. And with us country dancers doing it, the movements were pretty clean. We hit our positions, but we took time doing it, right? So a lot of the stuff in country dancing is about those transitions, about the time in between, about the traveling across the floor. The aesthetic is different. The goals are different, but it's the same positions. So it's just a little difference in attitude. But that thing with the skip changing versus keeping that inside foot anchored is a pretty serious technical difference that isn't just a question of styling or aesthetics. Let's see. They talk a lot in the manual about what those setting steps should be in the directions for the Foursome, and in Glasgow Highlanders they say you can switch to do appropriate Strathspey setting steps. And in here they say and this is from the manual's section on actually I think this might actually be Won't You Join the Dance, but it was carried through very closely into the manual about what those various setting steps might turn out to be. They talk about Highland Shatish, which doesn't happen in any of the Highland dance repertoire that from competitive Highland. And Glasgow Highlander setting. Also, it's really unique to our Scottish country dance repertoire. I don't believe it turns up any place in Highland or step dance, although there are some those elements are used in other places. But there's this very detailed description of the footwork for each, and some notes. It's interesting for men and women to do different steps, and then some advice about doing the steps so that you don't end up mirroring each other and kicking each other. That's what it boils down to. Let's see. So Glasgow Highlanders setting step. This is the secret sauce here. It's all written down. We'll look at people doing it in a minute, but I want to talk too about the instructions and the formations for this Glasgow Highlanders, because it's kind of unique. I think it may be the only published RSCDS dance that uses what is often called Becket formation, where you stand next to your partner across from another couple, the way you would in a square set, except it's not a square. You go in long lines all the way down the room. This particular dance, it was composed in 1895, which is, I think, exactly the same year that the Eightsome Reel was published. And the Eightsome Reel, I mentioned it earlier, is another one of these kind of hybrid dances, because it follows the same structure of a Highland reel, except with a circle chorus, where you set and you reel, and you set and you reel. But the setting is done as a solo figure during a circle, almost solo figure, and the reeling is reels of 3 instead of reels of 4. So it's a pretty clever adaptation of that Highland tradition and integration of it into the then popular quadrilles, which are what turned into square dancing, and are still done as in Regency dancing and old time dances. But this Becket formation, we call it Becket because of a caller who called in New England in the 1950s, and he named a dance after the town of Becket that used this formation, and there ended up being, as many as over 100 different popular published contra dances, American contra dances, that used this setup of the couples, where a couple was facing couple instead of partner facing partner. And I looked into it a little bit, because I thought, this shouldn't be called Becket formation. It should be Glasgow Highlander formation. Glasgow Highlander is clearly older than 1950. But it turns out that there was the Riflemen was before that in 1905, and the Riflemen was just a copy of the Gallopade, and the Gallopade was from the mid-19th century, maybe even as early as 1820, and the instructions for that are here. And you can see this diagram, it really lays it out. Here we have the gentlemen as pluses and the ladies as circles. But that's the setup for it. Also, I think it's really kind of interesting here in this set of instructions. It mentions that after the chorus, which all sing, the top couples gallop slowly down the center and remain at the bottom. So that sounds kind of cute.
I like the galloping, not romping in that instruction set too.
Yeah, I guess they gallop. It's not the way I'd spell gallop, but I think that's what they mean. And you see too, they say it's like a quadrillo. There just aren't ends, only the sides. So here's what the 101 Scottish country dances rendering of this and it looks like. everybody starts in sets because Scottish country dancers don't know how to do anything else across from your partner. And they take time to explain how the first lady crosses over to stand next to her partner. And the second gentleman steps across, and the second lady steps up into first lady's place. And they go, oh my goodness, I think Miss Milligan took a page and a half to describe that triangular little rotation in Won't You Join the Dance? And if you really just said, First Lady, step down to stand to the right of your partner, everybody else adjust. So your couple facing couple, it would work. It really can work out just fine. But this is where the action in this dance is. Once everybody gets set up, it's rights and lefts, it's a down the middle and back that's kind of cute. It's got a chasing element to it and a switcheroo as you come back up. And then the real action happens here in bar 17 to 24. They set with Highland Shatish step or any other Strathspey step. It's Glasgow Highlanders, and they don't say Glasgow Highlanders setting step, because this is an old book, and I think maybe before they had come up with Glasgow Highlanders setting step. So that was kind of neat. They also say repeat with first couple having passed, and that this diagram's confusing, this last diagram, because you see the men don't quite all wind up where they ought to be. The second two couples are good, but the fourth couple at the bottom doesn't make sense. But maybe they weren't really doing it all long ways. Maybe it's okay. Let's see, I have the modern or more modern instructions here. These ones also don't say Glasgow Highlanders setting step. It just says simple Strathspey steps, which is also kind of neat. Something else, this is a little random, but you know, if Scottish country dancing was ever confusing and seemed backwards to you, and I know it has, take a look at the diagram and look where the top is. It's at the bottom. So, you know, you weren't the only one who thought things were backwards. This actually does kind of make sense. This is from the perspective of somebody standing up with the band, of a teacher or caller who's looking down the hall. That's how it would seem. But still, having the top at the bottom, it's just, it takes some adjustment. So let's take a look at this. Actually,
it's very easy to rotate the book.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So I think this might be Toronto. I don't actually recall, but Strathspeys take a long time, and the whoever was filming took until the last couple turns through to shift their aim onto some of the better dancers in the hall. So we're skipping up to there. We're going to see some pretty good dancing here. So that had a lot of what I really like to see and like about Highland and its injection into country dancing is the variety. So there were different people doing different things. They did different steps each turn through the dance. Some of the ladies were turning and some weren't. Some of the men were doing Glasgow Highlanders and some weren't. Some people were using arms and some weren't. You have flexibility based on your level of inspiration and confidence and skill to perform how you like and not be breaking the rules, which is all this sort of a magic combination to be able to be individual and distinctive and stand out, but not be screwing everybody up. One of the things that you may have noticed in that earliest Strathspey reel I showed from the competition at Cowell is everyone did exactly the same steps. And that isn't actually required in most Highland dances, most Highland dance competitions, but it is required for championships so that everybody's getting graded on the same, on performance of the same techniques. But in the more run-of-the-mill Highland competition, the non-championship competition, the dancers have the option to choose among a really wide range of recognized setting steps, and that gives them a chance to play to their strengths and to do what they enjoy and bring some more feeling, some more love of the dance into their performances. Any thoughts or questions?
I couldn't see almost all of it. I had like a frozen video. I could hear the music, but I couldn't see anything. So
I saw it fine.
yeah, I think it's because of the screen sharing. If you turn the screen sharing off occasionally and let it reset between, when you go to the next thing, it allows the machinery to catch up.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that also gave me a chance to see Yvonne was waiting to join.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's see what we're up to here. I think that might be all of my slides, actually. Yeah, it is. I'm out of slides. It was time to stop sharing anyhow. Well, Yvonne, you missed it all. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop recording. We can have a little bit of free-form chat for a couple of minutes.